Tired of the ordinary at lunchtime? Why not try something smart to chew on? The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Tuesday, the 11th of March, 2025. This is program number 1335 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to radio, 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website, rcisaintlucia.com. You can download our older shows on that platform as well. And we are streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you have the option of also calling in to WhatsApp. And that number is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Now, as well, a bit of history for today. Back in the year 1966, on this day, a military coup led by Indonesian General Suharto broke out. 1985, March the 11th, saw Mikhail Gorbachev replacing Konstantin Chernenko as the leader of the USSR. In 2011, on this day, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake struck 130 kilometers east of Sendai, Japan, and that triggered a tsunami, killing thousands of people and causing the second worst nuclear accident in history, and that was involving the Fukushima nuclear plant. 2018, on this day, and we saw China's National People's Congress approving the removal of term limits for its leader, that of Xi Jinping, effectively allowing him to be president for life. And as well, just one bit more, a bit of history, and that is with 2020. On this day, we saw COVID-19 being declared a pandemic by the head of the World Health Organization. That's Tedros Ghebreyesus, and that was after 121,000 cases worldwide and 4,373 deaths. Before we head to our dish of the day, I also want to send out some birthday greetings to Mr. Albert Fragis. Happy birthday to you. And we do hope that you're having a very blessed and enjoyable day. Also to Miss Hermina Shallery, happy birthday to you. Hoping that you're having a wonderful day. And also to Miss Fonda Knight, happy birthday, and hope it is a wonderful celebration. We now head to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, with all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bossy Grocery Lanes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
Welcome back to our program here today at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. And of course, we do hope that everybody's having a good Tuesday. And we want to, of course, touch on a bit of the happenings yesterday at the global level and the implications of that trade war which effectively one can say came out of nowhere, except from the agenda of the world's most powerful man, Mr. Donald Trump, that has in fact begun reaping some negative impacts with respect to the United States economy, and in particular in terms of the overall investment climate. And of course, a lot of the resources, a lot of the money that is one of the strengths, effectively, of the this very capitalist system of the United States is that of the stock market and the ability to, in fact, have publicly listed companies, into which individuals can can buy in, get shares, and allow for innovators, allow for entrepreneurs to be able to get the capital to be able to then go on to innovate and to come up with new products, new services which people would want, and effectively add value to those shares. And so the stock markets have certainly been a very important avenue and point of interest for many Americans and many people around the world, certainly. And of course, we do know that there are stock markets all around the world, and in large measure, of course, the United States has been having the largest one, effectively, certainly in terms of capitalization. It's quite often looked at pretty tremendously and with great interest. And unfortunately, the brokers, the people on Wall Street, have not been too happy with the idea of tariffs, particularly tariffs with the closest neighbor to the United States. One can say physically as well as culturally and perhaps even economically, that of Canada. And of course, also the country that the United States does the most trade with, that of Mexico. And we have seen a back and forth, a seesaw of pronouncements and actions with respect to placing tariffs on trade with these countries. Now, let's also remember that these tariffs are being brought forward in the most curious of ways, because as far as I'm aware, they have not actually received the backing and consent of Congress. In fact, they are going contrary to existing trade agreements and trade arrangements that the United States has enjoyed with Canada and Mexico for many, many, many decades now. And we've been hearing about NAFTA, for example, North American Free Trade Area, for decades, and the idea of how that has brought a tremendous amount of prosperity to all three countries. And then we actually saw in his first presidency, Mr. Donald Trump effectively promoting NAFTA 2.0 with his U.S., Canada, and Mexico Trade Act, effectively, increasing that desire to see more trade and growth and development in those three countries. And so now to, of course, see what has been going on with this rather spurious and curious slapping of tariffs all of a sudden has not gone down very well. It certainly has not gone down well in the neighboring countries of Canada and Mexico. Canada has openly indicated retaliatory actions, both at the federal level as well as at the provincial level. We're seeing quite a lot of actions being taken by Canadian lawmakers and authorities in response to that. And everything from alcohol being taken down off the shelves if it's being produced in the United States, to placing additional tariffs on over $107 billion worth of trade, to, in fact, placing surcharges on electricity going to the United States of America. You name it, restrictions on and new trade barriers being put up on even trade between within the United States, so to speak, but has to pass through Canada to get to Alaska. That is also being looked at. There are many, many different fronts that the pushback has come from, and of course, right in the heart of the U.S. financial markets as well. We're seeing a withdrawal of a significant amount of capital where individuals are not sure how those things are going to pan out, and as a result, they're pulling their monies from stocks. And some of the big losers are in the tech sector. And guess what? Many of those individuals were pretty happy on January the 20th to be at the Congress, being spotted with their wives next to the president during the inauguration. It's not going down too well for many of in that sector. And of course, one individual who has become definitely the poster boy of the Trump presidency, and some might even say the president's president, Mr. Elon Musk, his stocks, in particular Tesla, have been down significantly since December of last year, losing a significant amount of value. I think just yesterday alone, they were down by 10%. And so we are seeing effectively a great amount of instability in those markets. And as a result of that, and the fears that are coming out of that, there are even concerns that the United States may very well be plunged into some form of a recession. And of course, if the world's most powerful country is going that direction, if there's a lot of uncertainty by way of businesses not wondering, well, what is China going to do? And what is Canada going to do? Are those countries going to realign themselves in terms of where they're going to engage in more trade, right? Where those flows are going. We've seen what has happened, for example, with Europe. Overnight, the European defense sector is all of a sudden a great place to invest. All right, and you're seeing lots of interest there because now Europe is having to pivot towards their own defense, and so that's happening. And you're hearing now of talk of Canada wanting to effectively become a member of the European Union, right? So you're seeing some shifts, very, very significant shifts, as to whether they in fact will pan out in the medium term. And of course, we shouldn't even say medium term, even in the short term, because this is only like about 2 months in to a Trump presidency. To see how those things will pan out will certainly be anybody's guess, whether we will now see a change of overture by the United States towards trying to woo back their traditional partners, what this actually means on so many different fronts of cooperation is certainly going to be very, very interesting. But let's face it, if people are smelling smoke and they're seeing flames, they're going to want to get out of the house and they're going to want to find somewhere else, right? Or to put out the fire. And so the actions, of course, of many countries are not too surprising in terms of their action. There have been some very interesting figures and leaders who have come out of this, being seen as heroes in their own right. And one of them is the president of Mexico, the United States of Mexico. Recently elected, Claudia Sheinbaum, first female president of Mexico, and she has been, well, she's a scientist. She's perhaps very calculated, very calm, and it appears that her negotiation tactics are paying off, in that there has been a sort of a simmering of the Trump hardline position with respect to towards Mexico and those tariffs there. And as to whether it's going to hold, let's wait and see. But it appears that for the time being, she's being hailed as a hero in respect of Mexico. Her popularity ratings, I think, are the highest one could ever imagine for a Democratic leader, 85%. And so as a result of the actions of Mr. Trump, we're seeing people rallying behind interests contrary to Mr. Trump. And we can also see the same also kind of unraveling in the case of Canada, where you had the Liberal Party quite likely of Mr. Liberal Party of Mr. Trudeau quite likely going to lose the next general election there. They seem to have been given a new lease on life because of Trump and because, of course, of a general association with the Conservatives and Trump policies. You're seeing some shifts there as well. Well, we'll have to see how things pan out right here in the Caribbean as well. And in terms of local elections, of course, both in the case of Trinidad and in Jamaica, they're going to the polls soon. And of course, even right here in St. Lucia, perhaps within a year or 16 months, we would be going to the polls as well. So, of course, many people are also looking at those aspects and whether, in fact, in 2020, sorry, 2020? Yes, 2016, the rise of Trump had a particularly interesting push towards certain types of authoritarian leaders and right-wing leaders. And that seems to have, in some way, this time around, may in fact have the reverse impact. Well, let's see whether we'll have more tropical Trumps, like the case of Brazil and elsewhere, or whether, in fact, the new Trump presidency will send people running the other way. That's our dish of the day. And when we come back, we'll take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tax for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tax for your balcony. Come down to Tax Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tax Plus, Tax Plus, Tax Plus. Big tax with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tax. Come down to Tax Plus. We also got gas and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tax on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Jubilee Lanes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tax Plus.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, we've got a clip, actually, I think, which is of interest. And in the last the election, of course, we saw Donald Trump going up against second time a female candidate was going up for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, and they didn't get too many debates in. They got one in, and it generally seemed to have been a victory for Kamala Harris in that debate. But what is also interesting, of course, is that some of these matters, which we're seeing panning out right now, were in fact the subject of that debate. And one of them, of course, was what's going to happen with Ukraine. How the two candidates going to approach dealing with the matter of the war ongoing in Ukraine. And of course, we've seen how it has panned out thus far with respect to Mr. Trump, and it's anybody's guess as to how that's going to continue at this point in time. There are suggestions of truce talks occurring in Saudi Arabia. I believe Mr. Zelensky is over there right now, and we'll have to wait and see what the terms of some of these of this truce talk may look like. And then, of course, in the meantime, we're still seeing ongoing drone attacks in Kyiv, in Moscow, even now. Retaliation by the Ukraine hitting targets in the capital of Russia. But let's take a listen to part of that debate, which was not too long ago, back in the run-up to that November election in the United States, a debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
To take this to Vice President Harris, I want to get your thoughts. Do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Right. And of course, that is rather interesting, because it seems to be exactly what has occurred in terms of the play out with Mr. Trump and the his approach thus far with dealing with Ukraine. We will have to see how this, of course, continues to pan out. There's U.S. looking to have a minerals grab within the context of the ceasefire talks, and somebody wants payback, right? That's what's up right about now. Let's take a call at this time. We're going to head to the phone lines. for our first call of the day. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. I always call you by name, but today I forget the name.
George, yes.
Mr. George. Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. George, and good afternoon for all listeners. Mr. George, I have some information that is really important in the behalf of the information you give in the clip you give there. And I believe I have the last one is so what the nation always pushing is in the way see pushing, I see to my knowledge, I cannot give anything under concern of what about the Ukraine, but I concern about the way the nation pushing, how we're going to feel a little hit of it soon as possible. That's what is my concern. Now, the other part, before I give you my concern about agriculture is the head of any economy, and then we don't have any engineering in the block as yet to show us the way for survival in case that hit will come. But I given one of the thing about what you mentioned about, he mentioned the lunch. That I mentioned the lady.
So he mentioned what? Sorry, I didn't.
No. Oh, I'm talking about when you giving the clip of Donald Trump of the lady.
Yes.
And then she said something about lunch. I don't give you something that we're going to face in the future if the Caribbean, the OECS, sit down and lay by as though somebody going to give them bread on the table. So let me give you what I mean about the lunch. And I see we are on a lunch table of the first world country. We're taking the developing ports for 40 years. We're taking everything we're giving the developer to give us. And we just stand and lay by. So I say, the same thing happened in the days of slaves. Remember they say, slaves have a conscience to taking people by in massive force and buy them, use them as animals to take them in the Caribbean. And today, the dollar is a whip. The dollar we use today is a whip. Because they put it scarce to us, so we're working harder to achieve it. And years gone by, and see how the development of the country is for the time. So I starting this to show in St. Lucian. Government has to get our approach to try to do our budget on its own. Give us a way, can give us a budget on its own by developer. That is my contribution to this.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, then, caller. Thanks very much for your contribution. Now, I think we're actually due for our weather report at this time. Of course, that's brought to you with the compliments of the St. Lucia Meteorological Services. So we're going to head across to take that in.
Island style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We are transacting sets, mixes and grow. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's for the course of the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours, the winds will be blowing from the east in here 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. The weather fair to partly cloudy skies with a few brief showers, mostly during the early morning. The forecast for the lesser entities, fair to partly cloudy skies with a few showers. And the weather summary, light to moderate easterly wind flow and relatively dry conditions will persist over the region during the next 24 hours. Shallow patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will cause a few brief showers over the region during the forecast period. And this was your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style. Tell them back.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style. Yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island Style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style.
We have tiles and princess, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality rice, service rice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
You can call in if you want to make a contribution. That number is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Now, today there's actually a sitting of Parliament and right here in St. Lucia. One of the matters up for debate is that I believe of legislation to establish a sovereign wealth fund here in St. Lucia. Sovereign wealth funds have become pretty popular, I guess you could say, particularly because of the achievement of some countries establishing these funds and amassing significant amounts of wealth. And the whole idea is that it's an investment portfolio that the state actually creates, and then it's effectively taking the success of the state, whether it's surplus monies, surplus revenue, and putting it aside, investing it first and foremost across the world, and then ensuring that that is available later on in cases of emergencies. But let's take a pause on that for just a little bit to take in a call at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, caller. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Let me tell you, with USA on Freeze, programs like what Prescale has had down in Beaufort, which I would say has been a success. Do you have any countries apart from the USA that give, like, to put money into programs like that? Because that's not it. Apart from Prescale, there was the other one with trying to rehabilitate young guys, and it was a little more older. From the prisons, give them a better life, to have them do training, skills, classes, all sorts of things, and these programs, I think government absorbed that one. But what about all the others? Because every time you hear so many diplomats from different countries bringing the credentials to the governor. When they do that, what else happens after that?
Yeah. Good question, caller. And there are other countries that are engaged in providing assistance, and certainly even at the grassroots level. Their methods might be a little different, or the agencies that they may partner with might be different. But they do exist. For example, I think the Canadian government has a similar type of a program. They may quite possibly be partnering directly with existing institutions, maybe Raise Your Voice, for example. So they will work with institutions to be able to do what they want to do.
The young marginalized young people.
Yes. So there's that going on. And quite often, I mean, you could perhaps even ask raise your voice. I mean, in terms of where they get a lot of assistance from, I do believe they get a good bit from.
I think they were part of the
from
USAID, and the days were stopped because I heard they said so.
They may have also been getting from the
Other
USAID,
places.
but perhaps also other sources as well. I know the Japanese government also has a grassroots
Yes.
program. I'm not too sure if they were necessarily targeting at-risk
Grassroots.
youth per se, but they do have certain programs where they may look at specific areas where they want to do interventions.
But tell me, when all those people from, like, you have Hungary, Poland, all those different
Mhm.
places, when they come and they bring the credentials to the Governor General, what happens after that?
Well, remember that's the
Do they
diplomatic
stay
relations.
on island, or they just come just to have diplomatic ties with the country?
That's right. So there's the whole, that is really a diplomatic formality, right?
Uh-huh.
That does not necessarily mean that they are instantly going to be providing any kind of aid, right?
Yeah.
Now, countries have different, I guess you could say, different levels of pockets, and they decide where they also want to provide aid. What we've seen as well is that a lot of aid has, because we have now become what is known as a middle income country, right? We have in fact not been getting much aid in that way in terms of grants, right? So
Yeah.
many countries that can afford to provide aid, many of them are targeting countries that are very poor, countries that have great humanitarian
But I know there's more
requirements.
scholarships.
So you're finding a lot of the aid was in fact heading to places like Africa, for example.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, you may get so you may get scholarships, for example. There are St. Lucian students studying in Hungary. You have St. Lucian students studying in Morocco, all right, which is actually a North African country. And Morocco, for example, has given aid in other forms, like in fertilizers,
Agriculture.
in
Yes, and
agriculture.
agriculture.
They did
Yeah.
soil testing. So countries will generally say, well, what can we provide based on our economy? What do we have surpluses of? For instance, we used to get a number of vehicles from Korea, right, and Japan as well, right? So they might provide ambulances, or they may provide support for police vehicles, that sort of thing, right? We've been getting assistance from the U.S. Well, it was primarily in the area of military, paramilitary, you could say, like police support, and then most recently they have been also supporting this WIRI, I think it's called, youth. It's a youth intervention program.
Yes, they
at-risk
do a
youth.
lot of that because
Right. So that has been a diversion, a court diversion program.
and it was good. It was very good.
Right.
because
So
the
those were
support-
meaningful. Those were meaningful areas of assistance, and they were also promising to assist in things like the forensic lab, making our forensic lab a center of excellence for the Caribbean, by providing training and equipment and that sort of thing. As to where that is at now, I don't know how that has in fact been impacted by the funding freezes that we have seen. The other thing I should mention is that you have different points of cooperation too, right? So you may have USAID, which is a specific agency within the United States federal government, but then you may have also other points of cooperation, maybe at the State Department level. So it might be something that is done through the embassy in Barbados, or a lot of the assistance that the U.S. has also been providing over the years has actually been through institutions like the World Bank and the IMF. I'm not sure how those have actually been impacted by any cuts thus far, right? So those are agencies, of course, that are more interested in providing maybe concessionary loans, more so than grants. Although in some instances they do provide some grants, but you would hear a lot more in terms of support not coming in the name of the United States, but coming through World Bank, or in some ways, even in some instances, the IMF. In terms of U.S. aid, we have not actually been a major beneficiary of U.S. aid for quite some time. I mean, I'm saying that they haven't done a few things here and there, but in general, they have not really been a major player. Certainly within the case of St. Lucia for some
So, well,
time.
I'm hoping that where we have your state, where it has stopped, that someone can pick up from there. Even people right down here, corporate citizens right down in St. Lucia. Because when you just listen to what's happening and you see how well these programs have worked. Because, I mean, if you have to listen to how things have turned around in V4, I mean, it is so different. So it's a lot more peaceful. There seems to be more young people, even older, are more productive. There's not much crime or anything coming out from there. So when you have a program that has worked so well, I think others should just, chip in and see how much they can assist the guy, because as he said that, if you say out of it, they're hoping that maybe corporate citizens will chip in and, so that they can continue the program. And even the other one, I know SSSDF and government has absorbed the one, with bodily prison and all sorts of things like that. But, I'm just, when people do those kind of things, you don't realize sometimes the countries depend on those grants and those aid to assist them in, turning around situations that are very troubling.
I don't know, call it in principle, yes, it sounds good, but then I would hazard to tell you that, our corporate sector is relatively small, and they are probably also very stretched as they are. They can only, they will only be able to do that as much as they are profitable and they actually have surpluses which they could perhaps provide in terms of their corporate social responsibility.
But some of them have it, but they just don't want to give it.
Well, there might be that too, but then they'll also tell you that they also have to have the means to be able to invest, right? So that's part of to have a business running, you also need to be able to expand that business, and so.
But you also want peace in the country.
Oh no, I agree, and that you can also see your corporate social responsibility as a form of investment in social peace. Yes, definitely. Yeah. But at the same time, let's face it, we are a relatively small economy, right? We're not even $2 billion in terms of our GDP. We can in no way compare to the ability and the means of these larger countries which have accumulated tremendous amounts of wealth and economic activity. And their pockets certainly are far deeper in that regard. It's telling when you look at even philanthropy in the United States, right? The whole idea of the capitalist system is that, well, you're going to get lots of people who are going to be extremely rich, right, as a result of in their investments, and then somehow that is going to trickle down. That is going to trickle down to the benefit of the people in that country by way of philanthropy. And let's face it, you still have a lot of challenges in the United States of America in terms of people being poor and not being able to get access to basic things in healthcare and early childhood care. A lot of things. You find a lot of Americans, even housing, is a challenge.
And as I listened to the clip you played of both Trump and Kamala, I said this the second time Trump is going against a woman and he actually beating them. And anybody listening to both women, especially that clip you played from Kamala, you don't have to be an intellect to see who came out on top.
Well,
but according to a gentleman that called,
who came out on top in the debate, but not in the election, right? So.
No. But then just up to this morning, there was this guy who called, and he just feels that, I don't have a problem with men and women. Once you have the thing to be at the top, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. But I hear these guys calling, and he has this problem as if a woman, she's the cause of all the things. She has to submit at all times. She has to be obedient because that's what the Bible says. It's like he blaming women for the mistake that Eve made, as if since Eve made that mistake, Eve was the devil.
Wow, he's going
And
far back, eh?
Eve, yes, and that's just the whole way he spoke. And this is that the guy you said, I can't imagine this guy having a woman. That woman have no freedom. Because you're just listening to him, and he insists like it's in the Bible that women are supposed to obey, they're supposed to listen, they're supposed to do all sorts of things. As if a woman have no right. So he's blaming a woman. He's saying as if Adam was a stronger person, and Eve was the evil one who actually brought Adam. The cause of all. And I don't understand why in a day like today you have men still thinking that way.
Yeah, I call it those are somewhat pointless debates. I mean, if we really at that point, we're not going to get very far if that's where we're at.
Why you have to get on this kind of in a day like today?
I would like to believe that was just more for comedic relief than
it wasn't for you serious,
for anything serious at this point.
Yeah? But at the end of the day, I said him is Adam was Eve wasn't because Adam, because he could have said no.
I don't know. I mean, it's called thanks very much.
It takes one man to make one woman fool another man,
I don't know about these things either. I mean, we like to make these generalizations so very much about boy and
no, but I think I know it's because
we like to say, oh, the woman is always right or the man is always right, and that's not. I mean, come on, let's be real.
I don't really subscribe to this kind of thing, but that's bleeding.
Yeah. So I mean, we're not going to get anywhere with that kind of attitude. I mean, let's face it. Even recently I was hearing. And repeatedly, that statement has been made that the St. Lucian people are always right, and they've never made a mistake, right, in terms of who they've elected in their general elections, right? And come on, let's face it, are the St. Lucian people perfect? No. The St. Lucian people have some sort of crystal ball, and they know precisely and always make the correct decision? No. All people make mistakes. All societies make mistakes. We are all prone to the feelings of our humanity. So let's not think because it's the US or because it's St. Lucia or because it's wherever, excuse me, that somehow, we have this this righteous perfection that we will always.
Just like we say St. Lucia as a Christian state, but when you have to look at the attitude and behavior of some people, they
doesn't match up, right? Yeah. Well.
Yeah, they don't make sense when they say that. Because some of them attitude, they're very, very, very far away from God. Come on, some of them they're selfish, they're wicked, they're all sorts of things, and you can't tell me you. And these are some of the same people that say that we are a Christian nation, but then sometimes they lack compassion or even empathy for people.
Yeah, that is true. But I mean, there was a whole study that I think I remember back some years ago. They did a study looking at children, children who were raised in religious households or religious settings versus children that were raised with values, but not religiously driven values.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, they were making the point that those who grew up in religious
single
settings,
parent home and all sorts of things.
No, I didn't. Well, that was. I mean, I'm not sure if that was a consideration, but in terms of the religious settings, those children had more difficulty in showing empathy, and they were also more. They sometimes were also. They were more likely not to forgive, and they were also more likely to be very punitive in how they approach situations. So in other words, somebody did something wrong, there had to be a punishment. In other words, there had to be.
It still happens.
Even in terms of what is right or wrong, but the punishment, it was had to be, you had to, maybe get beaten, or you may have to have gotten some kind of some kind of thing had to be done effectively because of the wrong. So that idea of good and bad, good and evil, and how that is dealt with from some religious lenses sometimes, in fact, causes some people to be more hardened in how they deal with people, and how they show empathy, and how they deal with forgiveness as well. So we actually, in as much as we quite often have a lot of messaging around forgiveness, that for some people in religious settings, they don't want to forgive, They don't, right? So it is something that we need to think about, and I think it's the approach of how some religion is taught, how it is brought across for individuals. Maybe it's an Old Testament, New Testament challenge, if you want to bring it from a biblical perspective. Right. Well, thanks very much for that contribution, caller. Have a good one. All right. All right. Sorry about that. I think I'm going to get a bit of a cold. But of course, if you want to call in to add any, make any contributions, you can do just that. The number again is 452-3046. So we're talking about sovereign wealth funds, and that's because there seems to have been a lot of interest all of a sudden with respect to sovereign wealth funds. And of course, we can understand the government has put forward a bill in Parliament regarding the creation of a sovereign wealth fund for St. Lucia. Now, a lot of wealthy countries have sovereign wealth funds, right? UAE, the United Arab Emirates, for example, I think has like the second largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. It's like $2.3 trillion collected, and they've got a number of investment arms, whether it's Abu Dhabi Investment Authority and Dubai World, and a lot of them, a whole ecosystem of sovereign wealth funds. They've been able to do so because of the boom that they've received from oil and gas receipts, right? The royalties that have come out of these entities. Norway, for example, went that way. And they've done it through a government pension fund, right? That's the principal entity within Norway, and so they've been seen to be tremendously successful because Norway is a country of just about 5 million people, and they've got a sovereign wealth fund of nearly 1.5 trillion US dollars. So a tremendous size of fund. When you consider the population. Another one that's is in terms of per capita, that's certainly up there, is that of Singapore. And what is remarkable in the case of Singapore as compared to even these others is that it's not tied to one commodity. It's not tied to oil and gas, right? It's as a result of very, very good and shrewd investments, putting aside savings over the years. And again, a country of 5 million people, and they have that put together a sovereign wealth fund of 2 trillion US dollars. So that's a tremendous amount of money for each and every Singaporean, which is actually held, you could say, held in trust by this fund. And many of these countries see these funds as rainy day funds, right? Funds that you want to have in the case of tremendous and severe challenges in the world, whether it might be because of war, or it might be because of natural disasters, or something tremendous. That's when you want to actually have this rainy day fund to be able to tackle those types of things. So a sovereign wealth fund invariably is not a fund that you want to be just dipping into all the time, right? That's not the thinking with respect to a sovereign wealth fund. It's not a fund that you may want to be going to, even on an annual basis to necessarily fund your general operating expenses of the country. That's not the idea of having such a fund at all. And it's not just the wealthy countries, of course, that have those funds, but perhaps they're wealthy because they have the funds as well. But you do have a number of other countries that have seen the need to go towards that direction, to have some kind of savings fund. Of course, they may not have necessarily been so successful as these others, but you do have African countries establishing those funds with the hope that you can then begin to effectively protect that rainy day fund from general interference on a day-to-day basis by politicians, by individuals running the country. So it has been seen to be a very important entity or institution which some countries use. And of course, the idea too is that you can then go out and you're not just investing in your own country, because you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. So the whole idea is that if you want to have a sustainable fund, that fund actually needs to be it needs to be protected from even your own economic vagaries, right? So it is in fact important that those funds go out and actually play a part in active participation in investments, whether on the stock markets, whether in other places further afield. So that's exactly what many of these funds actually do. We're going to try to squeeze in a call, I think, before we end the program at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thank you, caller. How are you?
All right, I'm very late, boy.
Yes, you're at you're calling at 2 o'clock.
yeah, I realize that. But so I kind of, all right, I'll hold that back for another day. But,
you seem to have a major contribution to make.
Well, because of the time.
Okay.
All right, but still, I want to say hello to Maureen for me.
Okay. Yes.
And ask her to play because that I find we should have paid more attention to women's international women and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, and I although it got some attention, but I feel we could do more.
Hyped it up a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah, and so I want to play a particular song for me that
Marine is not there. Hyper is there, but I'm sure he'll oblige.
Marine is not there.
Yes, she's gone back.
You could get a song, A Story by Mystic, a St. Lucian singer.
We have that one. A Story.
A Story. Yeah,
by Mystic.
Yep.
Get
it.
Yeah,
no
yeah. So we will end with that. Not a problem at all.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thanks very much, caller. Have a good one. Take care. And of course, to all those who called in and who are following online, we want to say thank you for that. And hopefully we'll be back again, God willing, for another program tomorrow. We'll be looking more at the whole matter of the Sovereign Wealth Fund as well tomorrow. Give it a bit more context. And hopefully we can do that. And of course, yes, we just want to, again, kudos to all the women out there who are making their contributions and doing so sometimes under very, very harsh conditions and even harsh treatment. We still have a long way to go in terms of equality. So let's continue along that journey in earnest. Now, let's play that song and we will be off. Have a good one.
Of man throughout his story.